In the previous lecture we were talking about conditional statements, so let's look at how we can actually use them. So imagine we wanted to output a string of text to say whether a number was above or below another number. Well, let's first get our two numbers, so we'll have the number 10 and we'll also have the number 20. And the first way we're going to look at how to do this will be with an ordinary if statement. So we'll just do if, open brackets, first number is greater than second number, close brackets, and then open curly braces, system.out, first number So if we run this now, we're not going to get any output because the first number is not bigger than the second number. If we change this to 30 and we run it again, it will give us an output. 30 is greater than 20. So this is where the else statement comes in. I'm just going to copy this line. So if we run it again, we're going to get 30 is greater than 20. And if we change it back to 10, we're going to get 10 is less than, or rather 10 is not greater than 20. So this is how we use if else statements. But what if we wanted more granularity than that? This is where the if else statement comes in. So instead of going straight into the else, we can go into if else, or rather else if. First number is greater than 10. Drag that down again. So this gives us more options. It's not greater than 20, but if we had 15, it's still not greater than 20, which is our second number, but it is greater than 10. And so we've got a second condition, or rather a third condition here. Now we can add as many of these else if statements in as we want, for as much granularity as we want. And we don't necessarily just need to output statements here. We could run different methods depending on what our conditions were. Or we could do virtually anything else that we wanted. It's most similar to a junction in a road. It gives you multiple options of which direction to take depending on where you actually want to go. The final type of if statements that you could do, I'm just going to comment all of this out because we'll come back to it later. If we just have one condition and one possible output, we could do So this is all going to be on one line. We're not going to use any curly braces here. And first number is not greater than second number. So change this to 30 again. And run again. So if we're just doing one specific thing, depending on whatever this condition is, we don't necessarily need these curly braces, but they do obviously make it more understandable depending on what it is that you're actually doing. And one final thing to note, while we were discussing this first variant with multiple different directions that we can go, you'll notice that when we were running through it, we were basically going through it in the order from top down. So if we had 30 is greater than 20 now, we're not going to get this second option. So 30 is greater than 20. 15 is greater than 10. And then 5 is less than, or 5 is not greater than 20. So just remember that it does run from top to bottom. Now what if you wanted to actually have more than one possible check, more than one comparison? Well, you can join multiple checks together, so you can have and second or first number is greater than 5 or 0, and this will make it more difficult for you to actually pass this test. It brings more granularity into it again, but in a different way this time. Now, as well as and, which we've got here, we also have or, which is represented by two vertical lines, two pipes. So in this case we're saying the first number 5 is greater than the second number 20. It's not, but we have this or, and so either of these two conditions can be true. And in this case, the second condition, first number is greater than 0, 5 is greater than 0, and so it's giving us this message 5 is greater than 20. That's just because that's how we've worded our output message. So you can join multiple comparisons together in different ways, and again brackets works in the same way. So you could have and second number is less than 30, and you can put that into a bracket. So both of these operations must be true, or this single operation must be true, because brackets are processed first, just as how brackets are processed first when we were talking about our operators. So I'm just going to comment this if-else-if statement out. And the final thing we're going to look at in this tutorial is called the switch statement, which looks like this. So if we have switch first number, we can delete this second, or comment out this second number for now. 5. So if we're going to use the switch statement, we're going to basically need to create a case for each individual possibility. So in this case, this first number is equal to 5, so we're going to print out the number 5. If we change the first number to anything else, it's going to fall through, and it's going to go to this default, and we're not going to output anything. In fact, we can change that up and so we can create different scenarios in this way. So we could create one for 4. We don't necessarily need to go all the way down to 0 either. We can just create these different variables or different values, and what's going to happen is Java's going to come in, it's going to look at the value of this variable, and it's going to decide whether it can identify the value in any of the specified cases. If it's not able to identify anything, it's going to go to the default action, which in our case is just going to print out not recognized. So this is very similar to an if-else-if statement, but for one variable, but it does only work for one condition. If you wanted to do something like we did up here, where we had either this first condition or both of these two conditions, we wouldn't be able to do that within a switch statement. It's only really good for using different scenarios from one variable. Now this is also important, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to delete the word break on each of these cases, because this is a very common mistake. It's very easy to forget to put the word break in there, and what happens if you forget to put the word break in? If we run this, we're going to see that the output is not recognized because of value for the first number is not 1, 2, or it's not 5, 4 or 3. If we change this to 5 and run it, our output is going to be 5, 4, 3 not recognized. Because what happens is when Java's running switch statements, it will identify the case which is true, and then it will run from there until either it finds a break or the end of the switch statement. So what it's doing in this case, it's going 5. Okay, so we know to print out this action. So what Java does is it first identifies that we've got the number 5, and then it runs the code appropriate for that case. But because it can't identify a break here, it doesn't know to stop. So it just carries on running, and it runs the code for 4. And again, there's no break, so it carries on running, and it runs the code for 3. And again, there's still no break, and so it runs the code for the default. Now this can be quite useful in some scenarios, but this is also a major source of confusion when people are using the switch statement. And so I just wanted to demonstrate that point, because it will almost inevitably catch you out. I don't think I know anyone who programs who has never been caught out by that.